I'm Dr. Craig Byrdwell, and welcome to part 2 of our video series on how I discovered the Simulacrum System and a new understanding of space, mass, and the periodic table. In the first part of this video series, you saw how I discovered the unit simulacrum, and it was actually from the bottom-up solution to the triglycerol lipidome, and then that was just half of it, and then you envision the whole half and you get to the octahedron here. So, and you saw very importantly the unit simulacrum. The unit simulacrum is important because everything that has a name, number, symbol, definition has a unit definition, has a unit simulacrum. So let's go ahead and go to the next part of our video series. This is the references, the publications for the bottom-up solution that was in the journal Lipids, and then the updated bottom-up solution in analytical and bioanalytical chemistry. Between these two, the Simulacrum System was discovered. That's why the notation in the bottom-up solution, there were 6 cases, 3 in each, 1 through, in the updated bottom-up solution, there was only just case 1 and case 2. Okay, go ahead. And we saw that in the triglycerols of the ABA type, if the position of B was in the 2 position, then that ratio was smaller. That was energetically disfavored. But we looked at the critical ratio, what the theoretical value with each of these at their maximum values of 1 was. That gave the critical ratio of 1/2. More specifically, you can look at that 1/2 as MH over the sum of the DAGs. This is the protonated molecule, and then the 2 DAGs, 100% and 200%, is 1/2. And so this is the first deconstruction. We talked about the unit simulacrum as being 1 plus something. Well, that is also the same as something plus 1. So the unit simulacrum is also known as the first increment. It's the first addition in the numerator. And so, in contrast to that, the first increment in the denominator gives the first decrement. So you go from 1/1, which is 1, to 1/2. 1/1 plus 1. So the first increment in the denominator is the first deconstruction. So when I tell you later, for all of you normies, that you're living in the pi deconstruction world, you'll know what I'm talking about. All right, so what we can do is what those equations doing mass spectrometry of DAGs and tags told me is that you can substitute in that terminal 1. If you've got this critical ratio of A over B being 1 plus 1/1, take that 1 right there and replace it with, deconstruct it. Replace it with 1/1 plus 1. And now deconstruct that one. So that's the first decrement, as I said. And so you do that again. So now, by the way, the first decrement I showed you, it had a value of 1/2, so that's 1/2. Now this next one, when you deconstruct that one, you get a value of 2/3. Then deconstruct that one. Go ahead. So we're going to keep deconstructing the terminal 1 and replacing it with 1/1 plus 1. So now we replace that 1 with 1/1 plus 1, and that's now 3/5. You should already start seeing a pattern if you know your Fibonacci numbers. And then replace that terminal 1 with the deconstruction of 1 plus 1/1, and it's 5/8. and it's 8/13. So this is just the natural deconstruction of each and every terminal one. Just deconstruct each terminal one. Just the most simple natural deconstruction leads you to something called continued fractions, which are in fact the Fibonacci ratios. 1/2, 2/3, 3/5, 5/8, 8/13, 13/21, 21/34. So, are you ready to go down the rabbit hole and see where this all leads? So here's the Fibonacci sequence, and here's the Fibonacci sequence. And if you take the ratios of those, then the ratios of each two neighboring ones become the next Fibonacci ratio. And they're nested ratios because the denominator of each next one is the sum of the numerator plus the denominator. So in that way, each one is nested into the next one. So now you have two sets of them. You have the ones where the numerator is larger, and then you have the one, the numerator is smaller and the denominator is larger. So these are increasing ones. These are less than 1. And then you have their inverse, which is greater than 1. And so these have the numerator larger than denominator. And so these converge to a value below, above, below, above, below, above, below, above, below, of 1/phi, the phi ratio. And do the other. And these start at 1, then above, below, above, below, above, below. And they quickly converge to the phi ratio. So this is 1/phi ratio. This is the phi ratio, also called the golden ratio, also called the golden mean, because in the golden mean, each greater part is the sum of two lesser parts in proportion to each other as the larger part. So you keep just deconstructing into infinity. So these started out as fragments of triacylglycerols that you deconstruct and build equations 2 to 3 levels deep. But from that you can follow it on down to see that it can encompass everything, including nature, because the Fibonacci series appears broadly in nature, and the spirals are not random, they are specifically in Fibonacci ratios. For instance, the sunflower here is in a ratio of 34 of the blue spirals and 55 of the pink spirals. Yeah, so there's the 55 of the pink, and then go back to that. So yeah, 34 of the blue, 55 of the pink. And so those are Fibonacci numbers that nature assembles itself in. And go to the next one is the daisy, that is in spirals of 13 and 21. Next one. So pine cones are in spirals of what, 5s and 8s? Let's see what that one is. So that's a 12 in one direction and 8 in the other. Okay. Must have been, 13 and 8. Yeah, those are the two Fibonacci numbers. Okay, go ahead. All right, small cacti are Fibonacci numbers of 3 and 5. So you can see that in just most plants, 13, 21, that exhibit spirals. This is the famous not let's see, not cabbage, but might be Fibonacci cabbage. Go ahead. Yeah. So this is naturally growing Fibonacci lettuce. So the Fibonacci sequence is the property of self-similarity, where it keeps just simply building on itself. Each new one is the sum of the previous two, and it builds and builds. So that is what the equations from the mass spectrometry led to, was these same proportions and these same ratios. So go ahead and skip on past this. And so those same ratios then, skip past it again. If you make a spiral, if you make a circle from corner to corner, a quarter circle in each quadrant that you make, then you get the Fibonacci spiral, which goes to infinity, just like the Fibonacci series. And the spirals occur in nature, all throughout nature, and in storms. And then if we go up and pull up away from the Earth here for a second and look out in the universe, then we can see that at Venus and Earth have a periodicity to each other of 8 Earth years for every 13 Venus years. So those are 2 Fibonacci numbers. So Earth is to Venus in Fibonacci proportions. And then the synodic period, which is the other description, the way that it appears, that Venus appears on the Earth, it forms this 5-petal flower. Again, so this very Fibonacci relationship between the planets. And if we go out even just a little further beyond our solar system and our galaxy and look at the bigger picture, then we'll see that even galaxies themselves form into these Fibonacci spirals. And I believe that was Messier 68, it said somewhere. So now we'll come back down into our seats here and look at, this is just the possibility to go the next step further from what I did. I just used the those fragment ratios for triacylglycerols, but I took some other people's data, Sue and Turk, from this journal, and ran it through some equations to show what critical ratios you could build for their data set if you wanted to derive information from their data set. So that's the end of part 1, the simulacrum.